welcome everyone to episode 7 of the HONESTea, where we are spilling all of the tea on, your reality, spirituality, anything I can add a tea to. We're going to talk about it, and I want to talk about it. It's actually, this is so hilarious because I say there are no coincidences, right? There's co-created incidences. And it's so funny because I went to record this episode and I have already recorded it, right? I thought I did. And then I pressed stop on the recording and I was thinking, why is the timer not coming up? So weird. But I stopped. I went to press stop and then I realized I hadn't been recording. So I had recorded this whole episode, I thought, and it didn't record. And what's so funny about that is that this episode is about what you focus on. And what I mean by that is that you get to choose your reality because of what you focus on, because of your perception, and you can decide and ask yourself in every situation what the meaning is. So I'll give you just an example. So, right, I recorded that episode and I was like, awesome. But there was a little bit of me that was like, oh, I'm not sure if I'm really happy with that, which usually I'm pretty good and I'm happy. But I was like, I'm not sure if I'm happy with that episode. So outside of that, then I realize I haven't recorded it, and I decide that meaning I'm going to give to that is not, oh my God, I'm so frustrated. I recorded and it didn't record and I've just wasted all this time. What I decided to make it mean is that just wasn't it. That wasn't aligned with my source, my higher self, my creator. That wasn't what I really needed to say or you needed to receive. And so this time I'm going to record something that's much more resonant with myself. And that is exactly what we're going to talk about today. That you get to decide what everything means in your life. You get to give your life meaning. And that's the secret. You get to ask yourself in every moment, will it define me? And if it does, in what way? And you choose the way. So, I have a lot of clients, and I myself have suffered through the loss of so many people that I adored in my life, My father, my grandfather, I lost them both when I was very young. My two uncles, two of my brothers now, aunts, one of my cousins who was more like a brother. I mean, I just can't even tell you, my mum, the number of people is inordinate, really, for any one family to have to suffer through that much loss. And I talk to a lot of people who have suffered a loss in their lives. And still, every time, I'm so, it's the most difficult thing, right? That loss of somebody in your life. One of the things that gives me comfort, obviously, is that I have a really deep spiritual connection with my creator, my source, the divine, God, whatever, however you define your source. But the other thing is that I know that I get to decide, and what I encourage my clients to decide is, will you make their death about how they died, how young they were, how old they were, how ill they were, will you make it about the last months of their illness, or will you make it about when they were here? How was it? What was their relationship with you? What wonderful things that they do in the world whilst they were here? How did they contribute to your life, to other people's lives? And that's the decision. You get to decide what you focus on. And that is what changes everything. And this is why, we have people who are glass half full and glass half empty, right? Because we get to decide. We have the ability to decide. And this, again, is a growth and it's a power. We get to decide what things mean for us, I was rejected by my family. When I started to speak about my trauma story, my sister told me that everybody in the family was disgusted and appalled at me sharing the story, and that they thought I was just doing it to make money, and like all of these awful things, awful things. And in that moment, I was devastated, but I was also kind of freed because they hadn't been supporting my journey. I didn't understand why. But I also really wanted to talk about it. I really wanted to say, hey, this is why I'm doing it, because I actually, love people, and I want to take away the stigma of sharing your trauma, especially for Pasifika families and all of these things. And it doesn't matter, but the thing is, what I could have done and what I did for quite some time was I made the meaning that they were awful people and they just didn't want me to share my story, and they dampened down my voice for my whole life, and they were jealous and all the things. I didn't tell anyone else this, but this is what I felt in my heart. And I also felt that there was something wrong with me and I needed to do better, and I all the old wounds were showing up. And then when I went on this deep healing journey, and I thought I'd been on one, but damn, that really, that whole, and there was so much more to it, but that whole situation made me really reach down deep, and took me into what I would call my dark night of the soul, and really made me face my demons. And what I realized was that actually I could learn from it, because the one thing that they wouldn't allow me to do was speak my piece. They wouldn't allow me to tell my side of the story. And if you've listened to any of my episodes, you will know that a lot of the time, not all of the time, but a lot of the time, when I get into my wounds, when I'm wounded, my response is fight. And by fight, what I mean is I would never physically fight anyone. God, I'm such a wuss. I would never physically fight anyone. That's not a thing. What I mean by fight, for me, if people wouldn't allow me to speak, and so this is the other thing I'm going to say, the way in which you respond, even when you don't allow someone to. So, my family was just stonewalled me and wouldn't let me speak, and everybody just kind of cut me off. That is a trauma response. I didn't recognize it at the time, but I do now. And I realized they were responding in their trauma. And they had my whole life. I'd always been like, I want to fight, fight as in I want to talk. I want to show up, and I want to, speak about it. And because for me, once I've spoken about it, we've had a really good exchange. I feel heard and understood. I'm okay to let it go, But for them, they didn't. They were in their trauma response, which was I shut down, right? In a freeze and a flight response, I shut down, and I don't want to talk about it, and I don't want to give this a voice. And I thought that was about me, but I realized that was their own trauma response. And the other thing is, I thought, what am I teaching myself in this situation? So one was that I wasn't able to respond the way I normally did. I wasn't able to fight. And for me, fight meant I would, so if I want to, if they wouldn't let me speak with my voice, I would write these long messages trying to get them to understand me, right? Or, and usually it was that, yeah. Or, maybe a voicemail going on and on. I'm a bit of a lecturer, my poor kids. So yeah, that's how I show up in my wounds. When I'm fighting, for me, it just means using my words a lot. Should be no surprise, really. And But what I realized and what I decided to make it mean, once I'd gone through all of this, is that, man, what a beautiful, amazing gift they gave me. What a wonderful gift. It was the gift to stop the fighting, stop the fight response when I was wounded. Find peace without having to be heard by somebody else and be externally validated by somebody else and say, yeah, actually, Angie, you got a really good point. And, I realize now and I'm grateful that I had to find validation from myself. And so what a gift. And not only that, it brought me closer to God, to my creator, to source. If I don't mind what religion you follow or what belief system you follow. You can call it whatever you want. For me, my God, it brought me, I never knew what a spiritual relationship was, a personal relationship was with my God, with my creator, what that was, until I was in the depths of that, rejection and totally stonewalled by everyone in my family and all those things. If they hadn't given me that gift, I would not know God in the way that I do and have this deep spiritual connection and belief and trust in myself that my voice matters. And almost the opposite of what they had said, which is, like sharing your trauma and all the things, is I've gone out and shared even more. At first I didn't. I shut down but I'm back with a vengeance. And this is the thing. And I trust myself more than I ever did. And I am so grateful because I know now I don't have to fight and I don't have to seek, external validation. And so that's what I want to say is my focus has changed from, oh man, you guys, like, you've never loved me, you've always treated me differently, you've always, because I'm adopted, right? So I used to always say that, you've always treated me differently, and you always, I could focus on that, and I was. But when I changed my focus and I realized, like, man, actually, this has given me such a gift, because now I know I don't have to be heard and understood by everyone else. I can get my own validation and my own peace from myself, and I can choose for myself how I react and behave in every situation. And when I was able to do it in that situation, find a place of peace, find a place of forgiveness for them and for me, when I was able to forgive myself for turning up in my wounds the way that I had, and forgive them for their wounds, and recognize all of that, it just brought me so much peace and brought me so much closer to myself, right? To fulfilling my personal legend. And that's the whole purpose of this podcast, right? Is that I'm going to endeavor to follow my personal legend, to live my hero's journey, in the hope that it will inspire you to live yours in whatever way that looks like. And it doesn't have to be using your voice, and it doesn't have to be sharing your trauma, and it doesn't have to be any of that stuff. It can be exactly what it is for you and how you discover your, what floats your boat, what fills your soul, what makes you feel beautiful and heard and understood for yourself, what validates you and makes you feel good. So that is, in my usual long-winded way, the story I want to share, because what you choose to focus on, the perception of your reality, can mean either that something is a mistake or something is a growth, that something can be a gift, and that's why I wrote the book, The Gift, because I recognize that every person, every situation, every incident that I gave meaning to, I could choose a different meaning. I could give it the meaning of being a gift for me. And you can do that too. You get to choose what you focus on. You get to choose what you believe in, right? That's the power. You get to decide how you perceive your reality. And yeah, of course, there's stuff, right? There is a conditioning and traumas and even generational trauma that you were born with, that we know that happens. We know that things have happened to you. We understand that, okay? And I'm not I'm not wanting to say that that's invalid, but I am trying to give you a place of power where you can change your perception of what happened, and you can decide what meaning you give to anything, small things. I've given you really big examples today, but there are small things that happen to us. And I kind of talked a little bit about that in Unbothered, right? If you heard that episode. So, when you're standing in queue, you can decide, they never have enough staff here. I'll look at them, they make all these millions and billions every year, but they never have enough staff. Or you can make it mean, you know what, this is probably actually a good thing because I haven't had a minute to myself today. And it gives me a moment to breathe and just sit here. And actually, oh my gosh, that wonderful young lady at the checkout that's having this conversation with this man is so lovely to bear witness to and to stand here and listen to. And you know what? It's probably stopping me from being in traffic, or maybe it's even stopping me. There's all those stories about all these people who have, been held up and then ended up missing an accident or whatever. You get to decide in every moment. Everything that happens to you, you get to choose what you focus on. You get to choose what you believe. You get to perceive it in the way that you want to. And I want to give you back that ability to do that. That ability. Just putting it out there. Another T that I managed to drop. So, choose the place of power for yourself where you decide. I'll decide what that means for me, thank you. And even when it's a wound, and our wounds, man, they can like I've said this before, I would open my mouth and a trauma would fall out, but we can bump into somebody with a wound, and not even mean to trigger other people. We can be triggered by things. I have a lot of people that I work with that are entrepreneurs, and they'll say things like, oh man, I just don't understand it. I'm doing all the work and these people are achieving all these things, and I can't even be happy for them because I'm really struggling because I'm not. So the way to choose that is to focus on, man, if they can do it, I can do it too, right? Let that be the focus, be not, oh my God, I've been doing it for longer and I feel like I'm way more intelligent or whatever it is, or I'm just as skilled as that person. Why are they achieving and I'm not? Rather than that, just be in a place of, yeah, like how amazing. If they can do it, I can do it too. I know for sure I can do it. If they can do it, I know for sure I can do it. You get to choose how you feel. And we will do another episode about energy and about all of that, but it keeps you in that energy. And that's why we have people where we say, oh, they're so glass half full or glass half empty. We can choose that attitude, and we can choose the meaning we give to things. And sometimes we have to stop and go, oosh, that hurt. Our wounds are real and they hurt. And sometimes we do have to go, oh, damn, is that a wound turning up? Or is that, sometimes we can justify for ourselves when we feel some kind of way, right? And that's okay too. All of it is valid. I'm not saying not to feel your feelings either, because you absolutely should feel your feelings about every situation and then decide to give it meaning. And you can do this with small things and big things. And, every time you do that, you are voting for the future version of yourself that has more wonder and more growth and more joy and more peace and more validation and more enjoyment, in their reality. And so, as usual, I feel like I've probably waffled on enough, and I want to leave you with this last message, which is heal deeply, lead boldly, live fully. I so appreciate you more than you will ever know for anyone that watches, for any minute you watch. I could not be more grateful that anybody wants to listen to me. You know, it's making me emotional that anybody would, you know, but I know that that this is me. This is what I'm supposed to be. This is how I'm supposed to serve. That's why it makes me emotional, because I'm getting to live my dream through you, and I'm so grateful. I'm getting to live my personal legend and my hero's journey. Oh my God, what is going on? But I'm gonna go away and feel my feelings now. And just say one more time, I appreciate you so much. Thank you for being here and taking the time to listen to me. I so appreciate every single one of you and every moment that you take to spend with me. Mwah!